Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to Versus Series. Remember, my team, Acebreakers, faces off against a well-known up-and-coming pro player. For this week, we have Beastmode from Acebreakers North America against Alexdaboss. So, first things first, let's get on to game number 1, as we have the first two classes being picked up here are Druid from Beastmode and Rogue from Alex. Now, this matchup in general comes down a lot to particularly what the Druid deck is and less so what the Rogue deck is. So basically, if the Druid deck is taunt heavy, then it relies on certain saps coming up at certain times, whereas if it's more combo-y, it turns into a bit of a race. Now, I do have the deck list up here with me as usual. As it turns out, this particular Druid deck is a full-blown double combo Druid, whereas the Rogue in question looks to be a reasonably standard Oil Rogue. I say reasonably standard because all Oil Rogues are slightly different based on preference, as is the normal with card games in general. That's double innervate and a coin for that Ancient of Lore. That was also of a wild growth, so if I'm not mistaken, that is a turn 3 Ancient of Lore, which is utterly insane. Preparation. Now that leads to an interesting question here, because you've got Violet Teacher, Backstab, Prep, Deadly Poison as a method of removal. Okay, he's going for it. Now, while this does look like it's a lot of cards to be putting into an Ancient of Lore, if you really think about it, you're getting an extra 3 1/1s out of it. So you're putting on 6 attack worth of pressure. And if the Druid doesn't have a swipe, this can be really, really brutal. On top of that, you keep the 3/1 dagger. It's not like you're using the entire Deadly Poison. As you see, there's no swipe on the hand of Beastmode there, so he's just kind of got to draw the Acebreakers and kind of hope for the best at this point. Never a situation you want to be in. I do see a counter Acebreaker drawing into a backstab. That is utterly brutal. Yeah, you definitely go for a backstab in a trade here. Keep on the pressure, keep piling on the damage. No real reason to slow down at this point. Not good on card advantage, but when it comes to dealing pressure, let's be honest, I mean, you don't win the game by drawing cards. You win the game when your opponent reaches 0 life. So, if you can get him there, then that helps a lot. Going for that removal on the Violet Teacher as opposed to anything else. Again, this lack of swipe is really tough. If he had a swipe, then he'd be able to handle this board reasonably well. We do see that sap. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Sludge Belcher come down here and then the Acebreaker just running into the 2/4. Or he could use the dagger as well and keep the Acebreaker at full health. Or just ignore it. That's the other play. Okay, he does decide to just go for more damage. Really trying to pile on damage since he does have an Eviscerate and he has the sap for any particular taunts. Okay, so he did go for the draw. Not quite enough pressure to warrant going for healing yet. The problem is that Innervate just hasn't done anything all game. Oh, second Acebreaker, that is a lot of damage. Actually, is that lethal in any way? 7, 8, 9, 10, 13... I think that's game, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe that is game over. Yeah, as we're going to see a Blade Flurry and to Eviscerate. And that is game. Very abrupt ending to that game, just showing that, as I said, you don't need to win through card advantage. You can win just by beating your opponent's face in with burn spells. As the Oil Rogue goes up in the first game, and that puts Alexdaboss 1-0 up. So, since this is Conquest mode, we have Alex switching over to the Warlock, whereas Beast mode is remaining with his Druid. Now, as far as Warlocks go, this particular Warlock is a very standard handlock. There's been a lot less handlock running around right now. Usually, when you see Warlock, it is Zoo. The main reason for this is because handlock has dropped off a little bit in terms of potency with the metagame at the moment. However, Handlock is always very good against Druid. They have serious issues dealing with a lot of their threats unless they draw perfectly. And if we look at Alex's hand, he has a Mountain Giant and a Twilight Drake and a method of giving them taunt. Multiple methods of giving them taunt. I would say that Alex should win this game, just based on opening hands. We don't have a particularly explosive one from Beastmode, and Alex has a very, very powerful one. Now, the question is, what does he do here? Do you coin Drake? Okay, so he's going for that coin Drake. Now, this does mean he can't play the Giant next turn. That's the disadvantage of this particular play. This is an obvious Keeper of the Grove, Silence, take down to a 4-1. Perfect counter to Twilight Drake in general is that Keeper of the Grove, Silence. Yeah, as we see that dead turn from the handlock. It was either going to be last turn or this turn. He did go for the Twilight Drake. I think going for the Twilight Drake is fine, and the reason for it is because if your Giant gets big game huntered, then it's much bigger tempo loss than a Drake getting silenced and then trading with an equal costed minion. Now the question is, Druid of the Claw or Sludge Belcher? You want to be mana efficient, I think. I think I would actually go for the Druid of the Claw and Charge. Just put on as much pressure as you can since you are that combo deck. Going for Taunt is interesting. The problem with going for Taunt is that Giants will take this thing out easily anyway. So I think I may have gone for the Charge there. But we do see the very interesting addition of Toshli into this Druid deck. I haven't really seen much Toshli when it comes to Druids. The only times I've seen Toshli has been with mages because they can use and abuse the spare parts with Antonidas and Sorcerer's Apprentice. But it's an interesting addition. I mean, it is a decent body. A 5-7 for 6 is a very, very good stats. But the question is, are the stats worth the cost? Because it's a 6-drop, and 6-drops are highly competitive in terms of power level. Do you see that second Giant? The question is he going to taunt? I think you do. Interesting decision to only taunt one of them. Actually, he's playing around Black Knight. That makes a lot of sense. So he's playing around Black Knight where he is taunting the weaker Giant because he knows Toshli has to trade into it anyway. But he doesn't want his strong Giant getting Black Knighted and then losing both Giants to a Black Knight as opposed to only one Giant to a Black Knight. Very intelligent play, actually. That was very, very good. Now, the question is, if you're from Beast Mode's perspective here, what do you really do? You can Wrath Hero Power the Giant if you really want to. I don't think that's advisable though. You can go for Shredder Wrath Taunt. Or Shredder Wrath Freeze is actually better. That's about the only play he had, because if you go Sludge Belcher, it just becomes food for the Giant. He really needs Big Game Hunter. We've seen the Big Game Hunter in this deck already. It was mulliganed away last game. Do you see that second Twilight Drake come off the top there? Double Dark Bomb, that may be what he uses to deal with this. Let's see what actually comes out of the Shredder. Oh, just a lowly Flame Tongue Totem. Now, besides with Force of Nature, Flame Tongue Totem's not too much of a threat. Now, there is a Force of Nature in his hand right now, but it's still not that bad. He can Dark Bomb it whenever he wants to. Making use of that Innervate, these Wild Growths came way too late to be helpful, as we see this classic scenario with Druids is that they go card for card with the handlock and they can't really keep it up. If you look at hand size, it's dropping and he's losing resources and he just can't punch through. Do you see that Molten Giant? What we could see here is a Twilight Drake. I mean, we could see a Shadow Flame, although I think Dark. You don't need to Shadow Flame here. The question is not whether you need to, but whether it is useful. So you could Shadow Flame the Giant. If you wanted to, you could Shadow Flame the Giant. I think Dark Bombing the Flame Tongue Totem and then just killing the Sludge Belcher, leaving the Shredder on the board, is good. Okay, I think he's going for a Shadow Flame play. Egg. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Alright, so he's not going for that Shadow Flame play, he's just trying to remove as much of the board as he can. Yeah, this does work. It's pretty equivalent to Dark Bombing. It does leave him in a better situation, but he doesn't have that silence, which could arguably be better than a Dark Bomb, because now he has to go through this egg. Although at this point, even a Tharzan is particularly helpful. All the Tharzan really does is reduce the wild growth costs for next turn. He needs some sort of crazy double combo and for the Sludge Belcher to disappear. I think the chances of Beastmode winning this game are going down the drain very quickly. Druids to win this matchup need a fast start into combo. That's generally how you beat Handlock. It's very difficult to beat Handlock any other way really, unless you draw BGH and 2 Keepers, then you can do it as well. But we've got that Defender of Argus coming down, and I think it's just too much at this point. Yeah, he's going face. Maybe a little bit aggressive. Yeah. No, he's going for that Shadow Flame. Okay, never mind. Going for that Shadow Flame on the Giant. Alright, so yeah, here comes the wild growth cycling, but I don't think it's particularly going to matter. We do have a glitched excess mana there that has already been played. It's just kind of hanging out at this point. It's always a bit painful watching a Druid die to a Handlock at this stage of the game, because it's very slow. Handlocks don't really close out the game that quickly unless they have Giant on board. And in this case, he just doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he clears out his Iron Becal so he can play Dr. Boom, since he was at minion cap if he played it there and would only get 1 Boom bot. And it appears that this will be the Druid's last turn. Yeah, as he just concedes, knowing that there's absolutely no card he could possibly draw to get out of that situation. So, on to game 3, as we have a Warrior coming out from Alex, who is currently 2-0 up, and this is going to need to be a reverse sweep from Beastmode if he wants to win this series. We have seen it before, it is doable. Druid against what looks like Control Warrior, as opposed to Patron Warrior. Acidic Swampoos, interesting addition. The funny thing is, I've actually seen some Acidic Swampoos recently. It's not too bad. I'm not sure if I like it over Harrison, but if you're running a lot of 5-drops, maybe you don't have space for Harrison. Maybe it's a bit too clunky, so playing that Acidic Swampoos instead. A couple other interesting additions in that hand there. You see Revenge could be a very good board clear later on. Now, generally, the Druid is heavily favored in this matchup. It's one of the Druid's better matchups, as he gets that Ancient of Valor on turn 3 again. Getting it twice in 3 games is absolutely crazy. Question is, can he deal with it? Answer, well, yes, actually, he can deal with it. He does have a multitude of weapons. He's going to use that Death Bite because you can set up the Death Bite to kill a 5/5 next turn. Yep, just going for that face. Funny thing is about this matchup, a lot of the ways that the Warrior wins is actually by just rushing the Druid down and killing him with Grommash combo later on in the game. That's one of the few ways that the Warrior ever wins these matchups. Drawing the Acai Pain could be very handy. I would not be surprised if we see a Revenge come out here for the Whirlwind effect. I think we will. Kills 2 of the Druid's minions and draws another card. as I would say the warrior is in a very good situation right now. He's starting to play more on curve. See that Toshli come out, which is a very, very difficult thing to deal with, simply because of that 5 attack. Oh, he gets the shield slam off the top of the deck. Very, very lucky draw there. Getting that 7 damage shield slam straight up, killing that Toshli. Now we can actually see the Druid of the Claw in, I would say, charge actually, and the hero power. And then you can hero power and kill the Acolyte. You could draw with Wrath off the Acolyte, I could also see that. I think I would have played that Druid of Claw in charge. Putting it in taunt doesn't really help you at this stage of the game. It just means that your opponent can more easily deal with it slowly. We do see that Dr. Boom. Now, this is going to be a swipe and a trade. Swiping first, a bit risky that your Druid of the Claw could die, however you also don't want to take a bunch of extra damage. So it makes sense. This Shade of Naxxramas is going to have to do some serious work this game, I think. But you see, he's getting a little low on the life total. I think a Grommash top deck later on in the game could seal this game out for the warrior. This does happen. A lot of people think of the Druid as the aggro deck in this matchup, and it's kind of true, but on the flip side of things, it's not always true. We do see going for that combo there. I'm not sure about this. There was a double combo in hand, so I'm not particularly sure about this, because it does use a lot of damage. Takes a lot of damage out of hand. I think maybe going for keeper trade was better. Keeper trade and then keeper face. I think that may have been better because it leaves you with 2 keepers on the board with a double combo next turn, which deals insane amounts of damage. A double combo deals 22, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it deals 22 damage and then plus another 12 from the board, ending up with a 34 damage combo. That would be enough to bring down the board, bring the board back down to size. Oh, we got another bugged excess mana there by the looks of it. Now, well, he doesn't have access to the combo now, so that's going to make this pretty tricky. Nothing really sitting in hand for him. So yeah, using that innervate, he's already used 1 set of combos, so the opportunity to draw into the second combo isn't really relevant. As we see that Grommash, but no way of activating it. No, he does have the Revenge, but the Revenge is 1-off lethal. He's only 1-off lethal. If there's no taunt that comes up here, then he does in fact win the game next turn. This is when you start getting very, very worried as the Druid. As we see Ancient of Lore, it doesn't matter. That heals him back up to 13. He needs the hero power, go back up to 14, and now he is safe. Oh, that is incredibly close. Very, 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 very close. Cloaking Field, the Thorazan, I'm guessing? Yeah, makes sense. There is no lethal right now. He needs Cruel Taskmaster off the top of the deck. That's an execute. Are we going to see a Brawl? I think we're going to see a Brawl here. As we do see double Brawl in hand. Very rare to run double Brawl in Control Warrior, but it does happen from time to time, and it always catches your opponent off guard whenever they play into the second one. At the moment, he's just trying to buy for time, because he does have that potential lethal draw. as we see that Sludge Belcher come off the top of the deck, that is very, very important. Extremely important. That is one of these single cards that could save him in this particular situation. Oh, it's a Death Bite. Is that relevant? Not particularly. I mean, you can, you could execute the 3/5. This is an awkward spot for this warrior right now. Alex is in a strange position because this Lotheb completely shuts down his turn. He doesn't really have anything to do. He can't combo Whirlwind effects. He could play Brawl for 10 mana. Do you Brawl again? Is that something you just do? I guess you could. He's going for that execute play. Okay. And then I'm guessing setting up the Death Bite for next turn? No, just armoring up. Very awkward turn there. I guess it really does show the power of Lotheb sometimes when it comes to preventing your opponent from doing much. Why is it always Azure Drake that ends up with the big Mukla bug, as I like to refer to it as? Yeah. His giant Azure Drake. Now, yeah, this did not actually break spectator mode, I don't think. Although I remember we did have some issues this time. But yeah, if you notice, there is a bug where it hasn't refilled the mana. So I think there's going to be a restart of the spectator mode pretty quickly here. It does take a bit of time to notice when something goes wrong because all the bugs are different. So yeah, you can't exactly figure out what's going wrong here. And yeah, I had to restart the spectator mode. We only had one issue this time. One issue is much better than the 5 or 6 we had last episode. So it's an improvement. It is definitely an improvement. Could be better, obviously, but definitely an improvement. So I'm happy about that. I think for next episode we may actually just use recordings as opposed to spectator mode. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what kind of state it's in when we do the recording, because that will be in the next week or so. So hopefully we didn't miss too much of the game. I think we definitely missed a turn. Okay, so by the looks of it, what happened was a attack on the token with the Death Bite. Now, we saw a Brawl, and then we saw a attack on the token with Death Bite. Dr. Boom got played, and then we've got a Grommash with the attack face Whirlwind effect for the game. So we only missed 1 or 2 turns there, but yeah, got in just to see the lethal. So anyway, that was a 3-0 sweep from Alexdaboss. Last episode we actually had a full 5-game series, which are rarer actually than 3-0 sweeps. We do have a couple of those, usually 1 a month, because they do show up. But yeah, all 3 games were fairly interesting. We did have the weaknesses of Druid shown in a couple of those games, and why a lot of people don't think it's a very, very top tier deck right now, which is that against decks like Rogue and Handlock and even some Hunters, it can be quite tricky to stabilize and put pressure back onto your opponent unless you get a very, very good draw. And against the Warrior, we just saw that the Druid is supposed to be the aggro deck, but in that particular situation, the weapon spam just allowed the Warrior to deal more and more damage to the Druid, to the point where it got to a situation where the Grommash just could charge in for lethal in the late game. That does happen quite often, a lot more than you'd expect in that matchup. It's still favored for Druid, but it does happen from time to time, and is one of the weaknesses of Druid, is that it's very difficult to stabilize when you're on the defensive in a double combo Druid. Whereas the advantage of playing double combo is that you get a lot of reach in punching through your opponent's defenses with that big combo swing turn. But anyway, thank you all for watching. For the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or just want to ask me anything, put it in the comment section below. As for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.